So welcome everybody to this 10th vision of our GEO-LDN online seminar. It's my great honor and I'm very happy to have the GEO-LDN country team Ghana, CAP, which is Community Action Planning, on board here. And the team today will present their use case, their GEO-LDN use case, that they were able to develop since 2023 when we met them the very first time in our Global Dialogue Forum in South Africa. Today we will have a progress update, and before we can actually start, I have some housekeeping rules for you. So if you have a question, we are very much welcome to use the chat box, and I will refer then to your question. Please mute your microphone when you are not speaking, so that we don't have any disturbing noises. If you have a question, please just use the raise your hand button and raise it, and I will then give you the chance to ask a question or say something. And yeah, it would be very nice if you could switch on your camera during the question and answer session, because it's much nicer and easier to communicate if we see our lovely faces. I will now hand over to my colleague Bernd. By the way, I forgot to introduce myself. Well, I'm Julia. I work for the GEO-LDN Secretariat in Bonn, and as a secretariat, we organize these GEO-LDN sessions, online sessions, to report and showcase what the GEO-LDN flagship initiative actually is doing in their work. And saying that, I hand over to my colleague Bernd Eversmann now for a general introduction on GEO-LDN and the seminar. Thanks. Over to you, Bernd.
Thank you, Julia. My name is Bernd, and I hope you can hear me well. So together with Julia and Alicia and Raphael, I work in the GEO-LDN Secretariat, which is hosted by GIZ for the time being. And if you're new to GEO-LDN, let me just make a few remarks on why GEO-LDN exists, how we work with our partners and partner countries. So GEO-LDN came to life in 2018 after one of the UNCCD conferences of the parties, where those parties to the UNCCD convention had asked for more support in the implementation of the convention. UNCCD asked GEO, the group on Earth observations, who responded by starting a new activity in their work plan called GEO-LDN. And since then, this initiative has grown quite a bit. We have a worldwide network of partners, NGOs, universities, regional organizations in Africa like RCMRD or CSE, or the University of Energy and Natural Resources in Ghana. So you see some of the logos here on the world map. And in 2023, we launched an open call to collaborate with country teams. The countries were asked in the application to submit a use case, an LDN-related use case, and we were quite overwhelmed by the response. We received 59 applications from 40 countries, and because of budget limitations, we were able to select only 15 of them. 14 teams from 13 countries eventually were able to meet for the first time in South Africa in what we call the Global Dialogue Forum 2023. And we had subsequent similar events in Senegal for the region of Western Africa, and also in Riyadh. Many of you were there and remember. And we used these Global Dialogue Forums to meet and to collaborate, to exchange experiences among the countries, but also between the countries and the Earth observation experts. And the results or the progress presented here by the Ghana team is one of the use cases developed as part of this process, and we are really very interested to hear from the Ghana team on what they have been working on. So with these few words, a bit of introduction on what GEO-LDN is. If you have more questions, please feel free to drop us a line in the chat or contact us via email. I'm sure we'll share some contact addresses. And with these few words, I hand back to Julia so that we can dive into the agenda and everything.
Thank you very much for the introduction words, Bernd. So yes, this is the agenda. While I'm talking, I share one question. So it's in the chat now. And yeah, well, before you actually get to know what we do, please have a look at the question I shared in the chat. And the question is, have you ever been involved in a land use planning process at community level? If this is the case, please give us a thumbs up in the chat. And yeah, so I continue now with my agenda. So we will have insights from the GEO-LDN Team Ghana Cup. They will give us a recap of what happened since the Global Dialogue Forum 2023 that were just mentioned by Bernd, and some action points since then. They will introduce the community action planning methodology and how they implemented it. They were able to derive some policy recommendations based on their use case, and then they will also give us a little look into the future, the next step, and the dissemination. Afterwards, we have a short audience reflection phase again, and then a lot of time for question and answer and also open discussion. Yeah, so now we are ready for the presentation of the team in Ghana. And before we start, I'm really happy to have you, Zach, on board. He is the Municipal Physical Planning Officer in One Assembly in Ghana, and also to have you, Amina, on board. She works as a District Development Planning Officer also in Ghana. So yes, ready for your presentation, please.
Madam Julia and the team. We are most grateful for this opportunity as a country team. So our presentation or our concept that we took to South Africa was community action planning for land degradation neutrality. The concept was muted during the community action planning guidelines that being initiated by the National Development Planning Commission of Ghana. So we want to, as a team, wanted to use that opportunity to see how community action planning can be used to solve the problem of land degradation neutrality in Ghana. What is CAP for LDN? That's a community action planning for LDN. CAP for LDN is an approach or initiative aimed at engaging communities in planning and implementing practical approaches, locally led actions to achieve land degradation neutrality. This approach is participatory and decentralized planning approach that puts local communities at the center of efforts to combat land degradation neutrality, achieve land degradation neutrality. In simple terms, you can't claim to be working to solve the problem of land degradation without involving the communities or the local authorities who are those affected by the problem. So we as a team saw it wise to at least involve the local people. They might have some good practices that can be brought on board to help solve those land degradation neutrality issues. The land degradation neutrality approach focuses on the four main issues. You are looking at a participatory engagement where everybody who uses land for their livelihood and other issues are being brought on board. We are looking at consultants engaging local communities, traditional leaders, and local governments in decision making. All those that have a take in land issues should be brought on board to participate in solving the problem of their land degradation. So we have land use planning, taking into account ecosystem, watershed and agricultural zones, and other land uses for integrated actions. We also have in mind the sustainability and resilience. In the working on the land, we look at issues of sustainability. What are the practices that will improve soil health, biodiversity, vegetation improvement, and social livelihood? And we also look at other alignment with this land degradation neutrality targets with national policies. that is tied to national or regional LDN communities under the UNCCD, that's United Nations Convention to Combat Climate Change. That's our focus area as a team. So land degradation assessment for Ghana. Ghana, when we came back from South Africa, we are looking at using the DSS to assess the level of degradation of Ghana's land across the whole country. So Ghana has, with the use of the DSS, we've seen that Ghana has lost approximately 30% of its forest cover over the past 20 years. That's driven by agricultural expansion, illegal logging, mining, fuel wood harvesting, and sand winning. A land dynamics productivity assessment conducted for between the period 2021 to 2023 revealed over 7,142,687.48 hectares of our land is in decline. So the figure shows the level of decline, the level of stress, stability, and then the increasing aspects of the land with their attached figures. So our recap from South Africa. We went into the Global Dialogue Forum in South Africa with the community action planning concepts in mind. So with that concept, what are we looking at? We are looking at using GSS and remote sensing to determine the level of degradation, planning, so to determine the level of degradation in Ghana, then planning the solutions or planning how to overcome some of these solutions, and then the community, in the planning process, we have to involve our local communities to see how we are going to solve the problem or help solve the problem of land degradation neutrality. So using the GIS system, we are looking at the data set, land cover, land productivity data, climate data, and then socioeconomic data. These are the areas that we are using the GIS and remote sensing to look at the data sets. Then working in this community action planning, there are stakeholders that needed to be on board to be able to achieve our aim or our concept. So we are looking at stakeholders such as the community members or leaders, municipal assemblies, and the National Development Planning Commission, the LUSPA, the Regional Coordinating Council, and then the MMDs, that is the grassroots level. What are the challenges that we are foreseeing, or the challenges when it comes to land use? We also look at bush burning, wood cutting, excess chemical use, utilization, and then land degradation. These are the major challenges when it comes to land degradation neutrality. We also look at aligning those recommendations or findings that we will come out with to national policy. That's the medium-term national development planning framework and other policies that will help champion our case. So action point and flow of activities. So from South Africa, the Global Dialogue Forum, we have our action points or flow chart of activities that we are to undertake as a team. And now one of them is clarification of issues and formation of team. What are the issues that we intend to work with as a team? And then who are the people that we want to bring on board to be able to work together towards achieving land degradation neutrality? We have to also set up a DSS team. That's then the next step. We also have planning for community action planning, and this one caps planning for community action planning. We are looking at community selections across the country. Which communities that are we going to be working with? Then we also have a contextualization of guidelines and methodologies. What methods are we going to use in this community action planning, and what methodologies are we using? Then we have community level engagement, the methodology. We have to engage communities. We also thought of engaging communities that's at that level on the methodologies that we are going to use for the community action planning, and then dissemination of funding at the COP. That's a COP 16, COP 16 Riyadh. So from point one to this to the examination of funding, we'll be able to carry out all these activities up to this level. And at the when we went for COP, we were able to present one community, that's a Jubilee Community Action Plan that we've done. And back from COP 16, we continue with the other 6 communities, the other 5 communities that we intended to do the community action planning as a pilot on. Then CAP for LDN in 6 communities across Ghana. Then we have policy brief. We also worked on a policy brief for community action planning for LDN. The brief has been done and shared with the brief. Then the insight dissemination webinar, which is taking place today. That is the next step at our community action planning. So from this, Mr. Zach will take over and take us through the processes that we went through in selecting and then working with the 6 communities. Thank you very much, Madam Julia and the team.
Thanks a lot. That was amazing and very insightful. So over to you, Zach.
All right. Thank you so much, Madam Amina. My name is Yakubu Zakaria, and as already mentioned by Julia, I'm the Fiscal Planning Officer for WA Municipal Assembly. So after coming up with all these analysis and then with the procedures, the Working Group 4 from GEO-LDN assisted us in developing the decision support system for Ghana, which we used in running our analysis to be able to identify the degraded areas, those that are declining, those that are stressed, and those that are progressing. So this is just the interface of the DSS that has been set up for Ghana. Analysis was done across the entire country using the multi-criteria analysis from the period of 2001 to 2022. And then factors that we looked at included the land productivity dynamics, the land cover, and then the soil pH, and then the soil organic carbon. So this was what we looked into during our assessment to assist us in coming up with districts and communities that are heavily affected with degradation issues. So our assessment was done according to the zones in Ghana. In Ghana, we have 3 main zones. We have the Northern Savannah Ecological Zone. Then we also have the Forest Zone, which is the middle zone. Then we have the Southern Zone, which is the coastal zones. So our analysis was done across these zones so that our community selection is not centered only on one part of the country, but it cuts across the entire nation so that whatever decisions or whatever outcomes that we arrive at, we can fairly say that they represent the entire country instead of it being at one end. So if you come to the Northern Zone analysis, you realize that a total of about 3.4 million hectares of land is in the decline. And then we have about 761,000 being stressed and with 4.6 million being stable. Now, if we look at the deforestation trend, I think from 2013 till 2021, you can see that the deforestation trend in the Northern Zone has been a bit of a decline because of the interventions of GIZ, EU REACH, and then we are adaptation activities. Now, if we also look at the land cover, the Savannah area, much of it is grassland with over 3.7 million hectares being grassland, and then the shrubland is over 2.8 million. You see that the forest cover is just 232,000. So it shows that we've lost a lot of forest cover in the northern belt. If we come to look at the middle belt, which is also considered as the forest zone in our country, you realize that a combine of 2.3 million plus has either declined or is showing early signs of decline, with over 52,000 hectares being stressed, and then 4.5 million hectares is stable, and then 2 million is increasing in terms of recovering and then from stress. Now, if we look at the deforestation, worrisome because this is our forest zone, but from 2013, you can see that we are having a very high level of deforestation that is happening there because of the issue of logging and firewood harvesting. Now, if you also look at the land cover dynamics, as I said, that is the forest zone. So that place has over 4.2 million, over 4,220 distinct areas as forest, followed by shrubland and then grassland. Now, if we look at the last zone, which is the coastal area, that one to over 1.3 million hectares of land is either declined or is showing signs of decline. And there too, from 2011 upwards, you can see that the issue of deforestation is on the decline, partly due to charcoal burning or felling of wood for logging, timber, this illegal timber felling, and then illegal felling down of trees for either charcoal or fuel wood burning. And that also has a very large land cover area of a forest, which is about 3.2. So the methodology employed, as Amina mentioned, we have the guidelines for community action planning that is developed by NDPC. And we decided to see how this community action planning guidelines can be used to achieve land degradation neutrality. And then the process of coming up with a community action plan comprises of 6 steps. The first step has to do with inception, where virtually all the planning activities are done there, what resources needs to be mobilized, how you are going to go about the community engagement, your timelines and everything is done at this point. Then you do situational analysis. This is where you look at the analysis, where we combine the DSS analysis we've done to see areas that are degraded, areas that are vulnerable in sites, and we also look at the community infrastructure that exists. And at this stage, we prepare a draft community land use plan that we can go with to present to the people and use that to sensitize them so that they can see areas that are degraded. And then from then on, we have the community engagement. And at the engagement, we sensitize them. We present this map to them, and then we accompany it with Vimel build, whereby they are able to see what activities they are engaged in that are causing these degradation issues. And once they themselves are able to tell that we do ABC, and we think that that is what is leading to the land degradation, then they will be able to profile together solutions that can be community-led and then now assisted with funding so that they own these activities, so that you don't go there and tell them that this is what you are doing and that is causing this, you must do that. So this is at this point that this is done. Now, from the community engagement, we pick all the information, the socioeconomic data, then we do the mapping and come back, and then we prepare a draft report for the community action plan, as well as the intervention map, the areas that were earmarked for interventions. These are put into the draft land use map to prepare the intervention map, after which we go back to the community, which is the step 5, to validate this outcome. What they have said, that is that exactly what we captured? Do they need to do some inputs or changes or amendments? Then that is done. Then we come back and we finalize the CAP. Then we submit it to the district assembly, because in Ghana here, the district assembly is the local government or the local authority at the grassroots level that does the implementation. So these are just excerpts from our community engagement. To the far left, you can see the CAP sensitization with a Vimel build that is being led by one of the community members, identifying similar activities that she sees in the Vimel build that people engage in within the community that has adverse effects on their land. Then from then on, we have the engagement. And we also give them the opportunity. They should get somebody from the community to draw the community map as they see it, indicating all these areas of key infrastructure where their chief palace is, all the facilities that are there, the road network and what have you, so that with this, once we now prepare the actual map and we put it side by side, and most of them are always excited to see that much of where they've indicated that this thing is located here is actually there, just to get them on board. Then you can see that at the far end, the picture below, the lady standing by there is presenting an intervention map to a community in Ada West, Atotokope. And then myself, bottom there at Yible, presenting the draft report as well as the community intervention maps to them. Yes, so at the end of the activity, a total of 44.847 hectares of land combined within the northern zone, that's for Yible community and then Kozia community were earmarked for restoration. The key activities identified in Yible that caused land degradation included some indiscriminate sand winning, cutting down or felling down of economic trees such as shea trees, and then there were these are economic trees that people rely on for survival, but they also fell them for fuel wood without replacement. And then bush burning by hunters also affects their agriculture. And the activities proposed to restore or to neutralize this degradation included to plant teak or cashew plantation to restore degraded land from the sand winning, and also to sensitize people on adverse effects of bush burning and felling of trees. Now, if you go to Kozia and Wa West, they do illegal surface mining that destroys people's crops as well as a lot of forest cover. And then they also fell trees to burn charcoal and also to use as fuel wood. So a total of 36.9 hectares has been planned for restoration in that area by planting of trees in degraded lands, and also planting of trees to create community afforestation, and also to train farmers on composting so that they don't overly use chemical fertilizers, and also to enact bylaws on surface mining to curb the illegal mining. Now, if you go to the middle belt, communities of Dromankuma and Ayurede were selected in Kranza North and Kranza South. They have similar problems, which included indiscriminate sand winning, farming along river bodies causing sedimentation on the river, and then destruction of farms and vegetations by stray animals. They also do a lot of rearing in these communities. And then they also use chemicals by the riversides. And when it rains, it moves into the river, thereby polluting these rivers. Now, a total of 64.367 hectares have been planned for restoration, out of which 17.4 hectares is to be restored in Dromankuma, with 46.892 hectares to be restored in Ayurede. And the activities to do the restoration included planting of trees along the river to create a buffer to protect the water body, then sensitization and restoration of land, degraded land through tree planting, and also to sensitize the communities on the effects of farming along buffers, and then the use of chemicals to be able to ensure that these activities are not repeated. Then when you go to the coastal or the southern belt, communities of Ajumankope and Atotokope were selected. Ajumankope is the salt hub of Ghana. That is where almost 90% of the salt that is derived from Ghana comes from. So they have a big challenge with indiscriminate salt winning that causes degradation along and around the Songo Lagoon. And then also with Atotokope, they have indiscriminate felling of trees leading to deforestation. And then they also have the issue of destruction of crops by stray animals. Now, Ajumankope's issue, because of the salty nature of the soil around there, not every tree species can grow or can survive in those conditions, but mangroves is one species that has been identified that can grow very well irrespective of the salty nature of the soil. So they've planned to restore 38.354 hectares of land within the community through the planting of mangroves to reclaim the degraded lands created as a result of what? Indiscriminate sand winning. Now they also want to do a sensitization on the people that are winning the sand, so that they have controlled way of winning the sand, so that they can have dedicated sand pits, mining pits, so that people can mine the salt, not that everybody just gets up and go and start winning indiscriminately. And then to be able to enforce this, they've decided that they will create watchdog committees to arrest and fine culprits who do indiscriminate mining with the assistance of the district assembly there. Then Atotokope community want to plant trees to restore the degraded areas, and also to enact and enforce bylaws on felling of trees without replacement, and then also to impound stray animals and find the people who have them, and then to avoid that. So these are excerpts of intervention maps from some of the communities. Now let's zoom it down to just take a look at one of them. If we look at the Atotokope community map, the areas in harsh green are areas that have been earmarked for restoration. The housing area is indicated in light brown. Areas that are used for educational purposes are shown in yellow. Then the community infrastructure has been mapped out, the basic schools, the cemetery, their burial area, their churches, the main street pub is there, the police station. The district assembly is actually located in this particular community of Adan East. They also have their business areas, their recreational areas. So we pick all the facilities there, and then together with them, we identify the areas that are degraded, and then they are mapped for restoration. At the end of the day, we decided to put in a policy paper so that we will see how best we can make this initiative a national issue. So with the policy paper, there are a whole lot of activities, but we have some 5 key recommendations in the policy paper as to how we want to deal with this. The first one is to develop a national framework on community-led and LDN. As I earlier on mentioned, the NDPC, National Development Planning Commission, is the body that is mandated to come up with guidelines and these frameworks to guide the planning in the country. And we want that if they're able to formulate and adopt a dedicated policy framework that integrates the community action planning into Ghana's national LDN strategy, it will go a long way to help us. Then also to define clear roles for communities in planning, execution, and the monitoring. Of course, we've also realized that when you go to any of these communities we go to, we get to the district assembly of the community and we move down with the planning officers to do this activity. You realize that they need capacity development. So we also want them, the local authorities and government institutions, to be capacitated so that the MMDAs would have what it takes to be able to assist these communities in the preparation of CAPs so that it becomes institutionalized just as we have the medium-term development plans that we do every 4 years in Ghana. Then, of course, we need to train these officers in GIS and participatory planning approaches, and then climate smart restorations, and also to create community restoration committees at the local levels. Now, we realize that funding has always been an issue. As it stands now, there is no dedicated fund for land degradation activities in Ghana. So it is a lump sum that goes to the district assembly. So if it is like it's to the discretion of the leader of the assembly, like what they intend to do with it. But we think that there should be dedicated funds for community action plan or community restoration area. So we want to call it like the Community Restoration Fund under the Ministry of Finance to support the CAP activity so that this fund is tied to that activity and you cannot use it for any other activity if not for community action plan and for degradation neutrality activities. And then we also realize that we need a private-public partnerships to help with this funding. So we want to incentivize private sectors to invest in restoration activities through corporate social responsibility mechanisms, green bonds, as well as PPP arrangements. Of course, gender is something that we need to work with so that we have also proposed that they should mainstream gender and social inclusion in this development. And we started it during this pilot, and when we go to any community, we have the women come up with their activities, the men come up with their activities, then the youth, then we put it together, then they do the ranking and prioritization, and then it cuts across. Then, of course, technology and data systems is something that we think we should look at because without technology, we wouldn't have been able to do all these DSS and analysis. So we want to ensure that they deploy community-based monitoring platforms that use smartphones, drones, and GPS for land tracking so that they will be able to track firsthand how these degraded areas or degradation or restoration issues are happening at that level. Then also to partner with universities and CSOs to develop user-friendly data dashboards that are accessible to the planners at the local level so that they can manage these restoration activities. And last but not the least, we want to expand the SDG 15.3.1, which is the monitoring framework to include community-generated data. Now, after these policy recommendations, what next? We've come up with the policy recommendations. Then the activities left. After all these activities have been done, the CAPs have been prepared, all the policy paper has been written. What next do we have to do? Of course, this is even part of it. We need to hold capacity or dissemination webinars to sell this idea to people who are like-minded or who have interest in it so that we will be able to get support to have it done. Then, of course, as I mentioned earlier on, we need to build the capacities of the planning officers and community leaders, because this is a participatory approach. And the district assemblies are the planning authorities at the local level, and the community leaders and community members are those that drive or lead the process of the planning. We need to build their capacities. And of course, the policy paper has to be publicized, or we want to do a publication of it so that it can be available for people in other countries, in other areas, to be able to have their hands on it and also replicate it elsewhere. Now, after which we now want to do integration. As I mentioned, the community action plan as it stands now is just to do community action plan. It is not looking at land degradation neutrality, but we have decided to see how we can use those guidelines to achieve land degradation neutrality. And once we have this vivid and strong evidence, we can now put it through NDPC, or National Development Planning Commission, then the Land Use and Spatial Planning Authority, which my sister earlier on referred to as LUSPA. In case some of you don't know, that is the Spatial Planning National Office. That's the Land Use and Spatial Planning Authority. That one oversees all the spatial planning in Ghana. Then the National Development Planning Commission looks at the policy aspect of it. So these two, we need to integrate this guidelines or proposals into the national frameworks. Then, of course, we are hopeful that we will get an opportunity, probably in the Global Dialogue Forum this year, to be able to disseminate this work that we have been able to do. And then to end, I would want to put it that all this wouldn't have been possible without the support of GIZ, PED, and GIZ REACH. PED supported us immensely in terms of technical support, and the funding for this 6 community action plans was possible because of GIZ EU REACH. EU REACH funded the entire activity, and I would want to mention and then acknowledge that the team is forever grateful for their support. So at this, and I say thank you, and then if there are any questions.